Okay, Pops, last time we were in a recession, you were selling cars at Acura North Scottsdale. Probably a bad place to be selling cars during a recession. Wanted to take some time to talk about the last recession, the recession that I'm going to say we're currently in, even though it hasn't been, officially called by some bureaucratic group. And you maybe can walk us through the similarities and differences from what you saw then, what you're seeing now, and your take on the situation. So what was it like back at Acura North Scottsdale during the Great Recession? That was '07, right?
The latter part of '07, all of '08. We started coming. Well, I was gone from Acura North Scottsdale by the time we started coming out of the recession. What was it like? It was like somebody turned the spigot off on the faucet. Okay, at one moment, the Colorado River was filled with water, and you could turn the spigot on your faucet, and water came out into your sink. And then it was suddenly like somebody blocked the Colorado River, and you would turn the faucet, and nothing came out. We went.
You just described the Hoover Dam, Dad. I'm proud of you.
Yes, I did. And we went from selling on average 104 new Acuras a month to when I was relieved of my duties, to at that time we were selling 50 new cars a month. That was more than a 50% decline in sales during that recessionary time. And I will tell you that, and I was relieved in May, I believe. By August, the sales at that store, new car sales, they delivered 18 new cars that month. So that was over an 80% drop in sales due to the recession. People were afraid. Banks went bust. The major investment institutions went bust.
Goldman Sachs, yeah.
No, Goldman Sachs didn't.
Lehman Brothers.
Yeah, thank you. You don't scare the folks at Goldman.
They probably made a lot of money.
Yeah. Thinking about getting an extended warranty? Go to joinyaa.com and check out our pricing there. There's no obligation, no spam, no robocalls. YAA for your extended warranty. There was great consolidation in banking, and money became virtually impossible to obtain on credit. So that people just stopped buying anything that was a major expense: cars, appliances, things, homes, things of that nature. But the difference between then and now is then there was a tremendous amount of new car inventory at dealerships all across the country.
Sure.
When the slowdown happened. So there was inventory with almost commensurate demand initially, and then there was inventory and no demand. And today we find ourselves in a situation where there's hardly any inventory, and there's more than a commensurate amount of demand. So
Yeah.
all that inventory gets sold instantly. If we have a recession today, demand will go down. Inventories might creep up a tad, but nowhere near where they were in 2007, 2008, when dealers were all scuffling, trying to figure out how to unload all these vehicles. So manufacturers had great incentives. Dealers, deeply discounted vehicles in order to move them.
Let's talk a little bit, Dad, about post-depth of the recession. We moved as a family to Maryland. You got a job in Maryland selling at another Acura dealership or managing another Acura. What was it like coming out of the recession? And obviously, we moved from one area, Arizona, where the recession hit very differently than Maryland. I mean, the recession in Maryland was a different recession from the recession in Arizona, right?
Sales were down at the Acura store in Maryland during the same time frame that they had dropped over 80% in Arizona. The sales in the Maryland store were down about 35%, maybe 40%.
Okay.
And that had everything to do with geography. And what I mean by that is where we were in Maryland is in the Washington, D.C. corridor. And, well, if there's one part of the country that's always going to have money, it's the Washington, D.C. corridor because, well, that's where your tax dollars come in. That's where the politicians are. That's where the seat of national government is. The government doesn't typically lay off people. They keep paying people. They keep collecting taxes. They keep paying people. Hell, they'll even go into deep deficits in order to keep people on the payroll and keep paying people and doing things.
Yep.
So the recession was a lot different in that region of the country than it was in the Southwest, for instance.
Yeah. But and one of the things I want to get at is how long did it take to get out of it? You know, was it quick? Was it long? Because what I'm wondering here, Dad, is the recession we're in now, getting into now versus the recession that you worked through are very different. You're right. One is supply. The reason we have a recession now is because of supply issues. The recession that we had then was because access to capital went away. You couldn't get things on credit. So it's different, which makes me start to wonder or question how the recoveries are going to be different. It's super early to be prognosticating about what the recovery is from this recession is going to be, but I'm curious, was it a long, it was a long
recovery? Slog. Okay. And the reason it took, I mean, you had to have really, 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 really good credit in order to get a bank to lend you money. You know, the mortgage debacle, all the investment debacles, everybody looked at the big banks and their lending practices, and they said, well, no wonder we had these issues. Nobody was really paying attention. Okay. It was basically a time in our history where if you could fog a mirror, you could get a mortgage, you could get a car loan. Lending became too easy.
Yeah.
So when they tightened the reins on that, it just became harder and harder for anybody to buy anything. So the thing that really turned it around was cash for clunkers. You know, there was $2 billion from the government and said, people go buy cars. Let's try and restart auto sales. And it helped tremendously. I don't think we'll need to see a cash for clunkers again. And I don't think we will see the same type of lending restraints this time around that we saw then, because that recession was brought on by greed from banks and investment concerns, the way they were packaging different investments. And so one would hope that we have a slightly better handle on that.
All right. So coming out of this recession, Dad, we'll need to continue to keep tabs on it. Will the recovery be like it was back in 07, 08, 09? Will it be different this time around? I mean, these are the conversations we need to keep having. Your knowledge, your information from back then can help us think about what's going to happen next. And curious what you think will happen, but we'll have more conversations in the future.
Absolutely. It'll be my pleasure to share my sad experiences.